This is a special episode featuring a recovering addict. Hi, my name is Sophie X. I'm the host and producer of the Voices of Recovery podcast. I'm joined here today by Farrah. Hey, Farrah.
Hi.
Thank you so much for doing our readings for the Just for Today and the SPAD for the middle of March.
Thank you for asking me to do them.
Of course, and you're on our special series for grief in recovery. You have shared your story with me, and I've heard you share it around the rooms in general about what life has been like for you dealing with the loss of your father and the aftermath of dealing with the loss of your father and staying clean, right? And you have nearly 13 years at this point, right?
Correct. Yes, my clean date is May 21st.
So I met you early in my recovery when you had 11 years going on 12. And I've had the pleasure of having you as my friend for the last 2 years of my recovery. So it's been wonderful having you be my friend. So thank you for being my friend.
Thank you. Same. It's
yeah.
been wonderful having you as my friend.
I love you. And you're an avid listener of the podcast. You're probably one of the people who will like call me and be like, "Oh, I heard this interview and I loved it so much, blah, blah, blah." So thanks for supporting.
Yeah, it's wonderful. This is just such an amazing thing that you are doing. And yeah, I'm honored to be on here.
Yeah, of course. Had to get you on. So talk to me a little bit about how you got to the rooms and basically how you managed your grief while being in recovery. Also, you're a mom. So give the listeners an idea of who they've been hearing for the last couple of days in March and take it away.
I started using drugs at the average age, 16. It was a mind opener for me. I thought that the world opened up. It was an extra level of warmth. Life made a little bit more sense because I was able to shed the fear of just being part of the world and laugh more. It started with marijuana. I found people that I could spend time with in a room and have the best time and laugh. And it was in the 90s, so it was Rage Against the Machine and Nine Inch Nails, Motley Crue, and some heavy metal bands that I loved at the time. And at that time, Motley Crue was heavily into drugs. So it was almost like
drug culture.
Yes, it was the drug culture. I live in Long Island. I started going to the city a lot. So it was nightclubs from Wednesday to Sunday, pretty much, till 4 a.m, 5 a.m, till, you hear the birds chirping. And I would go to my job the next day at 16, 17 with no sleep. And I worked at a children's gift shop and I twirled ribbons in the back. And I would be coming off of an acid trip, like twirling ribbons in the back room. I think I made like $5 an hour, $5.50 an hour. I always had to have a job. But then I found the job of like becoming a lifeguard. It's embarrassing to look back and say this. I worked at a yacht club, so I really wasn't watching that many people in the pool. But I remember finding my Coke dealer training to be a lifeguard. He was there and he was my hookup for a lot of the time through high school. And then, college, I gravitated towards the drug users. It was fun then, but the harder drugs were not easy on my grades. It got bad for a while there in college. Somehow I was able to curb it and get through. I found a love of journalism, so it gave me a desire to stop partying so hard and chase that career. And I did for a while, and I was able to curb it, and I was able to get a job in journalism for about 12 years. I worked as a reporter in Manhattan, and it was a great life. And I got married. Everything was going wonderful, and then I was introduced to pills. I realized that I could anesthetize every mood with a pill. If I needed to be up, I would take an upper and I would be able to work all night and I would be able to transcribe my interviews and I would hide it from my husband. I had one of those CDs with lines on it. I would chop up the pills and have it above the fridge behind something so he didn't know it was there. And he partied too, but he just didn't have the obsession that I had. It got bad. Doctor shopping. I used to walk around the city because I would walk to work and I would stop at stores and I would collect pill bottles, like different animal size porcelain pill bottles that they would have in the window so that I could keep my pills all nice and fancy in the shapes of frogs and pigs and butterflies. And I had a vanity and I would do my lines on my vanity. I thought I could do it all and manage that lifestyle. It wasn't possible. I wasn't able to manage it. And I eventually ended up in rehab.
What did the unmanageability look like for you before you got to the rehab?
It was loss of job. I ended up getting into television. It was a rough patch. There was a slew of layoffs. I had given up this great career working in journalism and I didn't know what to do. So I was lost. I had the drugs. So that kept me going. I filed for unemployment, talked to my friends and family, and it became even worse and worse and worse. When you're unemployed, lacking direction, feeling rejected.
All the time in the world.
All the time in the world. Idle time is the devil's playground. It can get really bad. And my marriage was suffering. So I ended up at a very fancy rehab up in Pennsylvania. And the seed was planted. I was 29 years old. I had to then come home, get a divorce. I got a dog. I named my dog Serenity, thinking that that would help me stay clean. She definitely did help me with the loneliness, but I sink deeper and deeper into utter despair, where I would just be on my bed journaling and thinking that there were cameras watching me, cameras in my eye. There were people on my roof walking around, waiting for me to leave my apartment, so I couldn't leave. I was going through a divorce. I was in love with two men at the same time who were not my husband. There was a lot of drugs that went on in my apartment there. When they decided that they no longer wanted to be with me, I was alone. Delusions of grandeur started. I had several dealers as well. I was on this third floor walk up with a dog. I didn't know where to go. The magazine that I worked for took me to Switzerland. It took me to Italy. I ended up stealing pills from someone that I was working with while I was in Italy. In my own mind, my disease rationalized it. You need them, and he has so many. He'll never know. But he found out. I had no idea about recovery, about withdrawals. I went on this trip like, I'm going to stop. I'm going to Italy.
Geographical change,
right? You know, it's going to do everything. I ended up losing my passport on the way. I had to go to the consulate when I ended up in Switzerland. Nobody wanted to help me. You know, it's like, we're here to do a job. We're happy. Like, what are you doing? You know, and I was withdrawing. I didn't have any drugs with me. For some reason, with geographical location, I had my best friend's wedding in Israel, and I went also without enough pills. My husband was with me and he ended up leaving me. I had to call a doctor to my hotel room, like a concierge doctor that I paid all this money to, just because like I couldn't move without the pills. And I just didn't know that I would have these withdrawals because I always had so many. I started running out. It was never enough. I just didn't think that there was anything wrong. You know, I was like, oh well, you know, fuck them all. I lived on 2nd and 1st in the city. I squatted there. This girl, she used to send fake attorneys to get me to leave. I ran out of money. I remember my husband, we got the divorce. I think he gave me like $25,000 and I was able to pay some of my rent, but it wasn't enough. I was buying nitrous from across the street and just like doing nitrous. I had beaten the Percocet though in rehab. That rehab worked for that, but I just replaced it with something else. So it was just never enough. I could not live authentically and be who I am. It was too scary to be that way. My father, I wanted to come home and I wanted to live with him. He wouldn't let me, and he was seeing a therapist. He gave me ultimatums to the point where it was like I had no money and I had no job, and living off of the unemployment, $350 a week, was not going to cut it. I was in my mom's basement, and I went to Florida and I went to rehab there, and then I went to a sober living in California. Like, I was all over the map. Nothing worked. I always knew when I was going to come home. I knew where the pills were hidden. I knew where I could get high. I knew where I could get more. I came back home. I was in the other fellowship. I would go into the city. I was convinced that city people were cooler and knew the way and all this. That didn't work. I was constantly journaling. Please, God, please help me. I want to stop using. I smoked so many cigarettes also. I had an abortion when I was 34. That was really bad. I realized later in recovery, my first year clean, that I had so many regrets. I had to deal with that to have gotten pregnant at such a 34 and then to have had to abort it. My father came with me to the clinic. I remember I was so high on Xanax just so that I couldn't feel. I remember being on the chair and there's nurses all around me, and I remember the doctor, and I remember him like almost being inside of me, me being like, no, 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 stop, stop. I don't want to do this. He's like, it'll be over in a second. And the pain, it was so excruciating, and the nurse is holding my hand. In that split second, my soul was reaching out. My spirit didn't want to kill this child. Now that I have my clean time, it all worked out because I have a beautiful child now who I wouldn't have if I would have had that child. So I get it. What brings me relief when I'm there was seeing the other women that were getting the abortion too. You know, it was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it.
And you were in active addiction too.
I was in active addiction, yes, of course. It was another year or two before I could really surrender. And that's what it's all about. I just had gotten tired. And I just said, like, let me just try this thing. I had been to meetings before, and I went to the Thursday night meeting in Williston Park. I just somehow kept coming back. And the people there were very inviting and welcoming and gave me their numbers. I was able to do it. I threw everything out that I had. I felt like there was a higher power with me, guiding me throughout this time. Even if it wasn't in a way that was based on fear, I wanted to live. I had a suicide attempt. I took a whole bottle of Ambien once. When I was like, if I wake up, I wake up. If not, oh well. And I woke up and I remember thinking, oh God, what is your plan for me? Thankfully, it didn't work. I suffered alone too, a lot. You're looking at me with such love right now.
Because I love you.
I love you too. But all of that torture and all that struggle and all that sadness, it's brought me to where I am today. And it's also why, no matter what reservation I have, I'm not going to use. Which brings me to my father, who was so proud of me, who came to every anniversary. He had sort of given up on me in a way. I was in a couple of psych wards as well, where it was like he had to cut me off and no longer help me until I started showing him that I was changing. I had 10 years when he was diagnosed with a brain condition called amyloid angiopathy. He was like 76 when he had a stroke and was diagnosed with it. They give a 10-year life expectancy. But after the stroke, he couldn't really understand what had happened. He called it the incident. He was never the same, but he was able to drive, play golf. His handicap wasn't as good. He didn't understand why. He was able to go to work. He was very defensive. He grew up in Brooklyn in the projects, in a generation where it was the men take care of themselves and take care of the women and take care of the kids, and we don't talk about feelings. He fell in love at a young age with opera and chemistry, which is a rare thing for a child. He started his own business in the early 1960s, and it is still flourishing. He was a self-made man. When he was diagnosed with this illness, he just did not want to face it. Instead, he sort of hid in his house, and he broke up with his girlfriend, and any help that I tried to offer him, it was denied. I was shut out, but I still saw him every weekend. I had a son. He was 2 when my father was diagnosed and when my father had the stroke. And I remember when my father was in the hospital, coming home and just hugging my son. This is happening. My father's dying. How does someone deal with it? He was young and I just wasn't expecting it. And thankfully I did have him a few more years. He got to see my son grow up, even though he was not all there. At least he got to experience that.
Was that his only grandchild?
Yes. His only grandchild. So I was able to give him the last 8 years of his life because of my recovery. I was able to put him as a priority in my life and also give back to him for all those years that he dealt with me and my bullshit. All the disappointments I gave him, I ended up redeeming later on. He was living alone in this big house. His legs blew up and I was looking at him like, Dad, you got to get that checked out. And he was 230 pounds. He was always 190 to 200, 230 is like a lot. We go to the cardiologist. The assistant to the cardiologist has to take his weight and things like that. And he asks my father, how much do you weigh? And my father says, 180. The guy's writing down 180, not paying attention. No, no, no. He's much more than 180. I'm 180. What do you mean? And then they weigh him and then they see. It's amazing how if you don't have an advocate, you're screwed. And that's also to say, would my dad maybe have been happier just falling down the stairs and dying that way? Maybe. Because the next couple of years, he, yes, got to see his grandson, but he was in assisted living facilities, dealing with people coming into his home, trying to help him, not wanting to, me taking away the keys to his car, him screaming, going into his car and saying, I'm going to get the F out of here, realizing he doesn't have the keys. Thankfully, there's something in the brain that when you have dementia and when you have these things, you don't realize what you used to be like. But a part of me sometimes thinks that he did really know, and that he was just hating having to humble himself, but also grateful that I was there at the same time and knowing that he didn't really want to die, because we don't really want to die. We have this innate survival inside of us. He was at a crossroads and he had a will, and he had said, if I have a terminal illness, do not do any surgeries on me. And he did. He had a tumor on his kidney that we could have had removed with surgery. We chose not to as a family to put him through that. He wouldn't have even known with the stitches how to take care of that, and someone taking care of him. He couldn't get dressed on his own in the end. In recovery, it's very hard to find good aides and people to help. And I have a full-time job. I'm a mother. My sister also was working full-time. And also he didn't want to be around us all the time. You know what I mean? If I would have taken a leave of absence and been with him, you butt heads. It's better when the family is there for a few hours a day is great. I tried it, cooking him his meals and sleeping over there and doing all of that. And it just wasn't working. It was hard on everyone. Started with the medication. He couldn't remember to take his medication, his heart medication. He had so many pills. We got a timer that would go off in the house, and we got cameras that we would look at while we were working. I was constantly on my phone looking at the cameras to make sure that he was taking his medication. And if he wasn't, then I had to call him. Why didn't you take your medication? And I would see him on the camera and he would just be like eating food in front of the fridge and not paying attention. Can you take your medication, Dad? You know, all right, I'll take my medication, you know. And I'm like, I see you, you're not taking it. For some reason, he didn't care that there were cameras around. Whereas if the old him would have known that I was videotaping him all day, he would have been so mad at me. But we were able to catch a few falls with the cameras where he fell. We couldn't see him and he wasn't coming out of his room. We were able to call in the aides to help him. It was a tough time, but like I could not have done any of this and juggle everything without being clean. Like there's no way. And I asked a friend in the health industry, do you know anyone? She gave me the number of somebody in the rooms who works with the elderly and dementia patients. She came and she met my father and they hit it off. Forget about it. And she was an angel sent from, I don't even know. She has provided so much love and care and patience and joy to the elderly community, I know, throughout her life. Her and her husband, who was also in the rooms. I was just lucky that our stars aligned at the right time and she was free because she's very busy, always. My father was able to live out the last year of his life with some joy because of her. Because she would make jokes, because she advocated for him with the other nurses, because she would call me and we would come up with arrangements, because they would leave him in his room if he didn't have an aide for 2.5 hours before breakfast trying to get dressed.
By himself.
By himself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is a big reason why I love the rooms, is because it's such a massive resource.
Mm-hmm.
We're just all in the same place. So many people have been through the loss of a parent and the deterioration of an elderly person in their life. And so there's so many resources where somebody can just say, here you go, point you in this direction and help you out. Thank God for the rooms.
Yeah, thank God. Thank God for her. And then my father got to be where he couldn't go to the bathroom on his own or with assistance. And she is a strong woman, but it was too much for her. And her husband ended up taking on my father. Wow, what a blessing he was. He saved my father, I think 2 times from falling off a chair, and that I caught on camera 2 days before my father passed away. He insisted on giving him a fresh shave and like dying with dignity. These 2 wonderful people that I still have in my life, they practice spiritual principles in everything. that they do in the way that they live. I had been in the room. I have been exposed to many people that do that. They were great for my father. My father passed, but like to have them in my life now is such a blessing, you know. And now I've asked her to be my sponsor and we're going through the step work. And it's like a total different revelation to me. It's not about what meeting are you going to? And I mean, yes, the connections are great in NA and the camaraderie and all that, but like it's about applying these spiritual principles now into my whole life just outside of the program. Always being aware of that, not letting the negative thoughts take over. She helps me with this. She always reminds me that every person you meet is a blessing. Her attitude and way and thoughts about the world is something that I admire. I want to feel that way because I can be still very judgmental and very negative sometimes in situations where I don't feel included or on board or whatever it is. Even at my job, sometimes I feel like I'm not given enough credit. I'm reminded the job that I'm at is an office job and it's not for a career move. It's paying my bills and I'm grateful. And I was at a point where I couldn't find a job. I had collected 95 weeks of unemployment. I reached the max. It's all of that.
What do you think was the most helpful thing to you in dealing with the loss of your father related to recovery?
I think it was being able to channel my authentic self, who I really am, without the drugs holding me down. I was able to wake up early in the morning, take care of my son and his needs, and go to work and simultaneously make sure that everything is working for him, that everything is in line for him, and also communicating with my bosses if I needed to take time to go see him, that I was able to be the best that I could be in caring for him, make the best decisions that I could make. I remember when I was in active addiction, I always would say to myself, I make the worst decisions. I would pray foxhole prayers to make better decisions in my choices of men or in my choices of job. And now I make better decisions. I'm able to make better decisions. And I was able to do that with him. And there's so many decisions that go into play when you're dealing with a dying parent. So many. He had debt. What do? We have this amount of money. Do we pay the debt off? Do we do this? Nobody sets you up for that. We have all this schooling in life, but we never really learn or take a course in high school or in college on how to deal with a dying parent. What do you do? And these were all things that I had to take on. And the grief after, nobody sets you up for that. Not only that, but he was on hospice. My sister and I had read about what happens. It's called the Shane Stokes, where the breathing slows down and it's like, and then he stops and then, and then stop and then, and then stop. And then all of a sudden he doesn't take another breath. When the Shane Stokes started and me and my sister ran up to him and we were in the room, thank God we were able to have him in his room in a very comfortable bed, pillows all around him. He had gotten medication, so he didn't really know what was going on, but he was still existing in this reality. It's starting. And I ran up to him and I grabbed his hand and I said, Dad, your mommy is waiting for you. It's okay to let go, let go. Everybody's there. I started naming the people that he would see. His father, Philip, who I'm named after, and who he loved, who died at the age of 57 from angina. It's okay, Dad, it's okay. And looking to the aide who's like freaking out because she didn't realize that she signed up for this today. You put these things on a toothpick and it's like a swab with water. I thought maybe he needed some water because they can't drink, they can't eat when they're like in their last few days. His stomach just shuts down, and I put a little bit on his lip and I saw his lip move like a little bit. And I still sometimes think to myself, was that him trying to say goodbye or something? And I'm just praying it's time. And I wanted him to be released. And then he did. He finally stopped breathing, and I was there to witness his last breath, and so was my sister. It's amazing what happens to a human body when they're no longer breathing, and I'm sure many nurses and doctors know it's just a complete transformation when the blood is no longer flowing through the body. And I've never seen that. I've never seen a dead body. And nonetheless, my own father, my sister was like, what do? We didn't know what to do. We didn't know what the next steps were. I called the hospice. They said that we had to wait for the hospice to come and declare him dead. They took 3 hours.
Oh my goodness. So you're like with your dad.
Yeah, thankfully, my sister's husband came. He's a very sensible man, but we were hysterical, and my sister had to put a sheet over him. He was my reservation that I wrote about in my first step with my first sponsor. If he dies, I'm using. I'm afraid I'm going to use. And it was the exact opposite. There's no way. I have received too many things from this program to throw that all away. And my son has never seen me use drugs or alcohol. We don't keep alcohol in the house. His father is also a recovering addict. I wasn't going to do that to my father's name and in his honor. No way. What I did instead was I immersed myself in the rooms and I shared about it. With no fear, I cried. Wonderful people surrounded me and helped me. Even when he was going through what he was going through, my home group, the members there, they all gave me the greatest, most heartfelt advice and support throughout that time. The reality that this happens to everybody. The day after, I just remember sitting on my hands and not knowing how do people do this? I never thought I was going to be able to watch TV again, shopping, things that we do on a regular basis. And the thought of using was just no way. I'm going to hold on to that for dear life. He came with me to rehab and he wrote a letter to my disease. My mother wasn't there. He showed up. My husband wasn't there. He showed up. He was always gunning for me. I was a daddy's girl. I broke his heart so many times. I know he's proud of me. I know he died proud of me. Having to deal with all the things after that come with a family member passing, he had a business. The business needed some taken care of. He had a car. And I asked people in the rooms, what do I do? And it was funny with his car, I ended up finding out that someone in the rooms actually sold him his car, which was this weird little miracle. I was able to sell it back to the car dealership where he bought it from for a pretty good price. And she went out of her way to help me because I didn't have all the right legal paperwork at the time. But you have a common bond with these people. If you're staying clean and I'm staying clean, I'm going to do whatever I can to make your life easier, to help you. And that was just wonderful to have that support.
Recovery is full of those types of miracles where you just look at the situation and you say, how is it possible that I know this particular person that can help me with this problem that's like so enormous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simultaneously tackling the car and the dad, helping you with that situation. And that's just the power of the rooms,
And not only that, but the people that showed up for me
right?
at my father's funeral. These people that I have created forever bonds with that were literally standing by my side. I will never forget that. It's a wonderful thing. It really is.
That chosen family.
Yeah, my chosen family. The connections that you make are unlike any other.
Yeah, in these rooms, we step in when our family's no longer there, especially in death, in ways that people in the outside world don't have access to. Shoulder your grief, help you manage the things that you actually need to manage, the actual fine details that are real big, real stressful. Thank God for these rooms.
Yeah, for example, our home group now, I was still very tender from it. And one of the guys in the home group was having a New Year's Eve party, and I had been sharing and been very vulnerable in the meeting. We all went to his house for a party, and it was just nice to have that connection with all the people. The love, they knew what I was going through, the connection, the way that everyone in the rooms wants to lift you up out of your grief and make it better. And we had a great time, and I was able to laugh, and I was able to make some new connections with people. Now I've been in that home group for the past year and a half. When I took a commitment as treasurer and also as chair, I love everyone there. Every Tuesday night when I walk into that meeting, I am lifted up. The newcomers also that come there.
We have so many newcomers in our home group.
Yeah, the struggles.
And it's a candlelight meeting.
It's a candlelight meeting, so it gets real nitty gritty
and intimate.
But people I feel like are more inclined to speak from from a place of transparency more when it's dark.
Totally.
Especially
More
addicts.
vulnerable.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And so it's raw.
Yeah.
You know,
Very much so.
I have an H&I commitment now, which I did not ever have. It took me 12 years to get a commitment in H&I because I was raising a child and COVID, and there's always an excuse, right? I wanted to get into it, and I have, and I do that every other Thursday, and I'm doing it tonight, and I'm excited, and there are times where I don't want to go. I'd rather stay home, and I go. And then after I'm done, it's the greatest feeling.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's that natural high again.
Yep.
It's a feeling of such gratitude, such satisfaction after just driving home, having made the impact, having touched the people that are struggling, saying prayers for them on the way home. And also just being humbled, so humbled. I'm in a detox, so it just makes you so grateful also. To anybody listening, it's so much better on this side. And it's possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it. That part of you that ran for the next drug, that part of you that wanted to escape so badly will be reinvented into a different part of you. It's the same part of you, but it's like a switch, and instead it works toward the good, and it works in full gear to help, to be on top of things, to make sure, to advocate, to not let anything slip by. My brain was constantly going to make sure that all the I's were dotted and all the T's were crossed. I never missed, taking my drugs. And that same part of me is now an asset. It's like a major asset and no longer a defect.
It's amazing who we can become when we're in recovery.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, sky's the limit.
I'm glad that your dad got to see that before he passed.
Yeah, me too.
What a blessing. What a blessing. Thank you for sharing your story. I love you so much. Thank you for being my friend. And I hope that this message reaches a person who is struggling with either losing or has lost somebody, and gives them a little bit of hope that things will get better on the other side.
Yeah, just ask for help. That's the one thing that as an addict, I never really wanted to ask for help. But then when you come into the rooms, ask. Help is everywhere.
Yeah.
And people want to help.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing. And it's free.
And it's free.
You don't have to pay for it.
And it transformed your dad's life, and just that action of asking for help helped usher him with dignity into his dying days.
Yeah.
Thank God for the rooms, man.
Thank God.
I love you.
I love you.
The Voices of Recovery podcast is an independent production of the Works of Wisdom. We welcome your questions and donations via PayPal at voicesofrecoverypod@gmail.com. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, associated with, authorized by, endorsed by, or in any way officially connected with Narcotics Anonymous or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. While NA literature may be read during episodes for the purpose of supporting recovery, such use does not constitute an official endorsement or representation by Narcotics Anonymous. In accordance with NA tradition, the NA name is not to be used to endorse or be affiliated with any outside enterprise, and no such endorsement or affiliation is by Sage. Thanks for listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast.